Welcome back to Lenz, comic corner, classic less known classics. This is episode number 2320 and Doubleshot number 2214. Kind of do two DC trades. Now, the thing with two trades, the both associated with Grant Morrison was first one. He would not write this book until the 2010s. Yeah, actually around 2020-ish. First, we have the critically acclaimed run by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. Sadly put, they both since passed away. I met one of these guys, met Neil Adams. I met him 6 times. We have Green Lantern / Green Arrow Hard Traveling Heroes. This collects Green Lantern Volume 2, number 76 to 87 and 89, and backup stories from The Flash 217 to 19 and 226. Now, first question you might ask, Nick, why isn't 288 here? Well, there's a good reason why. It's a reprint. Yes, and here's something my interesting. After issue 89 was released, the book basically ended for 4 years before it was brought back in the year 1976. Now, the whole thing of Hard Traveling Heroes thing, that was already in issue 76, got wrapped up issue 81. Now, 76 is basically noteworthy for his famous cover, which of course basically Blackest Night decided to do homage to this very famous cover. Yes, it is cover right here. Yep, that's the cover. Now, of course, also this book brings us stuff like racism, cultural stuff, and mostly you have Green Lantern, Green Arrow going on basically a journey across the country. At first, they take down a slumlord, which, of course, the Lanterns don't like that very much, despite the fact Green Arrow points out, though, yeah, you're full of bullcrap, which they are. And also, they sort of explore humanity. So we have one of the Guardians, simply called Oldtimer. They revealed his name in the 1980s, and currently this Guardian is deceased. He got killed off at the end of issue 8 of Green Lantern Volume 3. Because he went insane, because we went on isolation. So they travel across the country over the course of several issues, and eventually the journey ends after only 6 issues. And then, of course, go back home. There's, of course, very different stuff going on here. Issue 86 is noteworthy in this book for the debut of John Stewart, a.k.a. one of the most popular Green Lanterns, and one who DC doesn't like writing very much. Currently, the guy currently has the second ever ongoing series right now. Yeah, he didn't get his first ongoing series until the 90s. And here's a little fun fact for you. Did you know in the 80s, this guy briefly took over the title of Green Lantern for this very title? Yeah, he did. For about 2 years. Then he handed back to Hal Jordan prior to Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now, he is the only noteworthy debut you have in these issues. Issue 87 is him becoming Green Lantern for the first time, because he simply asked and he just agreed to right away. He becomes simply put basically a backup Green Lantern. Now, also throughout these issues, mostly put, you also have Green Arrow fighting Sinestro, which that was an interesting idea to do. Which thank you, Danny Adams, for doing this. And then 89 is by far one of the dumbest issues I've ever read. Yeah, where Green Lantern and Green Arrow basically beat up by a bunch of people, and then basically, trying to stop a guy named Isaiah, or prevented him from, you want to save him, but he doesn't want to be saved, and they proceed to put him on a makeshift cross. And then right after Green Lantern and Green Arrow are beaten up, they're also crucified as well, basically with chains mostly. And after they're freed, Lantern's like, screw this, and destroys a multi-dollar plane. Kara probably was probably not too pleased with the guy with her. I think it's one of her people work for company. Or not happy. So, and of course, Green Lantern's like, send me the bill. Also in these issues, Carol finally finds out that Hal Jordan is Green Lantern. And apparently she knew all along. And, well, that kind of proves the relationship. Though it's been on and off over the years. And DC's had this thing where they've been very, very hesitant to have these two marry. Yes. Now, it's not the writers who basically are hesitant about this. Oh no. I'm sure they probably want to marry them, But DC higher-ups are hesitant to allow Hal Jordan to get married to Carol Ferris, his primary love interest, who has been his love interest since the 1950s. On occasion, basically, Hal's dated other women when he's not with Carol, like he once dated one of his old fellow Green Lanterns until he found out she was a minor. Of course, he also dated a fellow pilot who would go by the code name Cowgirl in Volume 4. And also at one point you have Carol dating Kyle Rayner very briefly before they broke up. Yeah, it is kind of weird. But this book is really good. It's classic stuff here. I'm giving this book a 10 out of 10. Oh, in the case of the flash backups feature, mostly put it's how looking for Oliver Queen to get his life back together. Well, but you have Hal Jordan, you have Oliver Queen going bald. But this is the deluxe edition of the book. And I thoroughly enjoy reading this. This was just a lot of fun. Now, you might be curious though. Despite the fact there's one other thing I have to talk about here, because here's kind of the thing. I have to bring this up, otherwise though, people will mention in the comments, why did you bring up the classic story that basically gave Neil Adams the idea from Marvel Comics? When Snowbirds Fly from issue 87. Actually, it was from 82 mostly. I think it was. Let me just make sure about that. I want to be sure I get this correct mostly. Snowbirds Fly. That is from issue number 85. 85-86, which is the basic conclusion. Now, this particular story arc is noteworthy for basically outing Roy Harper as a heroin addict. Now, this was an idea probably presented to Denny O'Neil because of the success of the three-parter over at Marvel with the Amazing Spider-Man deal with drugs. Because here's kind of the thing about this, is that prior to this story coming out, apparently, according to the Comic Book Authority, we cannot depict drugs at all. And the story goes, what I heard, is that Stan Lee was approached to do this story by the Department of Health. And he went to the Comic Book Authority, they turned him down, so he went to his editor and they published anyways, and it proved to be such a humongous hit that the Comic Book Authority had to update themselves, because at one point they would allow freaking vampires in comics. Yes, seriously, or even werewolves. Like I heard a story once where Marv Wolfman couldn't use his own name because there's no werewolves. And he's like, that's my name, Wolfman. Yes, he had to argue with the Comic Book Authority constantly over his own freaking name. Yeah, seriously, but this story is a classic Denny and Neil Adams story. Now, here's something else you might not know. I didn't know this because here's the thing. Apparently, Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams have never met each other, despite the fact they're credited with a bunch of comics together. There's this book, there's their Batman work they did, which is probably what they're a little bit more known for than this book. There was also the book that Neil Adams himself basically has stated that it's one of his favorite comics to work on. And that was Superman vs. Muhammad Ali, which is a great story. I think that was also the last book these two ever worked on together. Now, I did ask Neil Adams what it was like working with him. He described him as a strong Irishman. I didn't know this until fairly recently, that these two never met each other. Never. They mostly communicate via their editor, Julius Schwartz. I have heard about Julius Schwartz, and the fact this guy was an editor. He's basically edited like a lot of DC comics. He's basically the equivalent of what Stan Lee probably was up to over at Marvel. Yeah, but this book is classic. Love it. Now, I will be reviewing the very next trade that comes after this one, Space Traveling Heroes. Oh yes, there is a trade called Space Traveling Heroes. What's covered here is 90 to 106. This will be quite something to cover this one. Oh yes, definitely. Yeah, there is a trade known as Space Traveling Heroes. And I will be covering in the future. That's the most recent trade they've released for this thing. Yeah. Despite the fact that their run wraps up with 122, well, here's something quite interesting though about these issues. When the book was resumed, Neil Adams did not come back to title. It was mostly just Mike Grell taking over the artwork, and he did from that point forward. All right, next up we have is Doom Patrol, Book 2 by Grant Morrison. Collecting issues of Doom Patrol Volume 2, issues 35 to 50. Yes, there's several different things going on here. We do see a return of Brotherhood of Da. They briefly return here too, thanks to Mr. Nobody. We do see a debut of Flex Metallo, the man of mystery, the hero of the beach. And he thought, though, putting on his wrestling style boots and this Speedo get back his powers. It didn't work. And this you might find interesting about Flex Metallo. That, here's the thing about this guy. He made his debut at the start of this book, and he was here for not very long. Now, he did get his own book, but apparently that book was considered not to be canon with the main universe because it's Vertigo. I read it. It's actually quite good. I enjoyed it. Frank Quiley does the artwork. Now, he's only here from issues 35 to 44, and that's pretty much it. He just skipped one issue, but let's see. There is a noteworthy issue. Okay, it happens for next trade. Okay, so I have to worry about that. So mostly, we have various different things going here, like fighting a group known as Men of Nowhere. Now, 35 is the debut of Flex Metallo. Yep. That's what noteworthy about that issue is. First appearance of Flex Metallo. Come on, seriously? Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty much noteworthy about the issues. First appearance of Flex Metallo. Also, Danny the Street makes his debut. He's a Sentient Street's also the transformation. Also, first appearance of Sarah Furness. She is not around very long. Not really. She's only around to issue 46 and she's gone. Yeah, apparently by 46 they basically make all changes to the book. But yeah, so the organization known as the Men from Nowhere, which is an acronym. Yeah, and they're here also they're here to 44, but it's strange to the fact a lot of characters are just not appearing at the issue. Yeah, there's a lot of really weird stuff happening in these issues. It was about protecting the beach. That's most of what it is. By the way, we have Kelly Jones in the artwork. Yep. It just seems also, you also have Crazy Jane where she does some stuff too. And Dorothy Spinner, who's, has this face. And she's here for, she would debut in issue 14 of this book. And she's here until pretty much the finale. Yeah, she's probably one of the very few characters from Paul Cupper's run who actually does return after this. Oh yeah, definitely. It's a lot of really crazy stuff. Now, here's your artists on this book aside from Kelly Jones. Your other artists for these issues are Richard Case, Mark McKenna, Mike Derberg, Steve Yawolf, Vince Guerrero, Jimmy Howlett, John Nussberg, Malcolm Jones III, Scott Hanna, Mark Badger, Doug Hazelwood, Kim Duggar, Rem Hunts, Hughes, Michael S. Kane, Duncan Fergio, Brian Ballard, Paul Grist, and Simon Bosey. And he does the original cover artwork as well. This is, of course, a Brian Ballard cover here. Yeah, so who does the interiors of these issues? Well, in the case of 35, it's, Brandon McCarthy. For 36 is Kelly Jones. 37, probably done by Simon Bosey. 38 is Kevin Yates. Yeah, but mostly basically it's either mostly Richard Case doing the artwork. Now, aside from Return of the Brotherhood of Da and the debut of Flex Metallo, there's not really, let's just say, a lot of noteworthy things. I mean, it just seems like a lot of characters just drop after issue 46. It's like after issue 46, stuff just changes. Let's call it Dr. Silence. And he's very briefly around. He gets killed off in issue 49. Mr. Evans. Yeah. And he gets killed off by issue 48. It's like, yeah, it's like Grant just introduced some characters and just kill them off for issue 50. Because, well, maybe he had some other stuff going on in the book. Yeah, so there was a group called the Sex Men. Yes, seriously. It's like stuff just gets really, really weird throughout these issues. Yeah, the Brotherhood of Da comes back. Dada. Yeah, they come back in issue 49. And if you're really curious, they're here to issue 52. And that's the last you see them until Secret Files Orders in a recent book. Yeah, it's like they make 2 appearances and that's it. Yep. There's also one point in this book where I think it was Josh Clay asking Niles Cordair if the Justice League come back, and Niles is like, I don't care about the Justice League. I don't give a damn. Because in this run, they're using the Secret Sanctuary as the base of operations. Now, if you're really curious, when do they stop using the Secret Sanctuary base of operations? I don't really know. I think maybe it's at the end of this run. I'm not sure. It's like they were headquartered out here. They're in this run for Volume 2 up into issue 21. And then basically they switched over to a different base and they come back later on to this book. And if you're really curious, how long does the book, does this base use them? It starts with 21, and I think they stop using it with issue 62. So with next trade here, I'll basically just, well, they'll probably just stop using it at that point. Yep. Excuse me. This is pretty good itself. It's like we just continue basically Grant Morrison's doing. He's riding high in his success in the book. But next book we discuss for this one will be the end of this run. Yep. But yeah, that's going to be pretty much a particular view. Next up, if I get a chance to do it, I'm going to watch Ultra Q. Hopefully get through 4 more episodes of that. And I'll probably get through a little more afterwards. Okay? Next view. Bye.